So let's just enjoy the feet on the cold floor. Just Dan Qian, just getting into the Dan Qian. So it's not just a matter of sort of standing and sinking. You've got to sort of work this area a bit, you know, to get the sort of lower vertebra a little bit looser. So the best way really is just to sort of pace side to side a little bit. So just heavily just getting into the leg and just letting this sort of collapse and breathe. Just getting some sort of movement into the lower back. So just trying to get the spine sort of bending rather than tilting. Yeah. So it's doing this. Yeah. So it's actually pointing at this leg and bowing like that. Yeah. So just trying to get some flexibility, especially in the lower back. But you have to start with the upper back really, because the lower back is so thick and stiff. So, yeah, so just establishing the Dan Qian as like a true physical center rather than just an imagined point in my mind. That's it. Yeah. So just really feel like the ground is somewhere where you want to sort of burrow into it. You just really want to be on the ground, in the ground. Yeah. So in a sense, you sort of get into the Dan Qian by imagining the earth beneath the feet. That connection. Ooh. Ooh. Okay, now let's just bring it to riding horse. Okay, so just feel this. So the Dan Qian should draw this part in and press the Min Meng back so that the lower spine is sort of flattening out, losing its natural arch. So you just want to feel your whole body, you know, from the head down to the feet, is centered here. Yeah, so if you put your hand on the Dan Qian and just look at yourself, you can see yourself in the little picture. Yeah, then that should, you know, that should very much be like in Leonardo's Vitruvian Man. You know, the navel for us, it's a little bit lower. That's the center of the body. So we're just trying to just quieten this down. So as soon as you start thinking to yourself, the only way you can really start thinking to yourself is if you whip some energy up into the head by bringing some strength into the lower back, yeah? So if we can just flatten that out, this sense of curving under the buttocks, you know, like the back just blending into the buttocks and the thighs, and draw this in a little bit so that this will naturally sink down there, then you won't be coming out of there all the time. And just feel the earth pulling on this, your center of gravity. It's pulling you down. So if you relax the legs sufficiently, then you'll feel this as like a constant pulling force. And you can support that basically in two ways. You can either do what we usually do, which is just freeze it out, just lock the legs and pretend it's not there. Or you can produce a force balancing that, so countering that constant streaming. So for that, you need a constant streaming upwards. So your legs they're letting go, but they're tensing at the same time. Yeah, a bit like elastic. When you stretch elastic, it's letting go to allow you to stretch it, but it's pulling in all the time. Otherwise, it wouldn't spring back when you let go. Yeah, so the legs are bending because they're relaxing to feel the pull of gravity, but they're also straightening to provide a counter up thrust. And we just want to feel that as an energy that's flowing up through the body and up and out of the head. So it's not just something that's here, the top of my legs, it's passing all the way up the spine. And you can see those two forces, you know, the down of gravity and the up from you are very different. You know, the down of gravity is almost like a mathematical, linear pull. And the one from you is very organic. It's of your body, it's of your shape, your curviness, yeah. So you've got this straight line, which can be represented by an arrow pointing down. And then you've got this sort of snaking, twisting, and they're so different that they never quite balance. You know, there's always this sort of play between them because they're of such different order, yeah, different quality. Okay. And now let's just get this pulling in a little bit. So just aiming to just get the lower back curving, get it breathing really. So just pulling in and just expanding out. Yeah. Don't use force. Yeah. Use a smile. Use compassion. Just look at it and coax it. So we're just working the dantian like a muscle, getting it to contract and then getting it to expand a little bit. So what we have to make sure is that the work that we do with it doesn't cut us off from the pull of gravity, from the earth acting upon it. And you'll feel it. If you feel like the legs have just come up a tiny bit and have stopped hurting, then it just means you're no longer sinking. Gravity's no longer there. So we should be able to work this and actually have part of the mind on that pull, on the sinking. Yes, a part of your mind is always with the bigger picture. It's always outside yourself, seeing how you are relating to the environment. Let's just bring it back a sec. Again, just feel this still pulling down. Feel the up thrust snaking through your body. And then just feel the dantian. It's like an orb at the center. Okay, now let's just try a bit of that exercise again, but this time what we want to do is feel the dantian, but feel it as two parts, two halves. You're like the brain, the two hemispheres of the brain. So it's the same here, yeah? So when we're pulling in like this, we're actually tensing the whole thing and pulling, yeah? And now just tense one side. So just feel one side of it. And then release, yeah? So you can preferentially just tense one side of those muscles. Yeah, so when you tense one side, it will contract just that side. So it will tend to make you bend a little bit because one side is getting shorter and the other side is staying. If anything, the other side is expanding. So, ooh. Yeah, so it's basically yielding, like when you yield with one hand. So it will produce a turn as well if you let it go. So it will continue its contraction by turning this way. Yeah, you just let that come in. And then just let it go a bit. So as you extend the hand out and expand, sort of come into this leg, and then here, pulling here, and then coming into this leg here. So, wow. So what we're looking at is the seed of fullness that actually causes that side, that empty side, to become full. It's like the little eyes in the yin yang symbol. Yeah. So here I've just expanded here. So this is the empty side, yeah. And then here I just produce a little ball of tension in the middle here, and that slowly pulls my whole body into fullness, yeah. And then that little ball starts expanding out, yeah. So it becomes like emptiness, and that expands through the fullness, pushes me into this leg, and then the whole side becomes empty. So yeah, so you're seeding all the time. There's this right in the center of what you're doing. There's the future. There's where it's going to go. Yeah. So here it's tense. Everything else is soft, and then it gradually all becomes tense, and then this becomes empty because it's got energy that's expanding. You can think in terms of like contraction and radiation. So either contracting into a point or radiating out of the point. Here it's all contracting, and then here the expansion, the radiation starts. And there's always that lag. It takes time. Yeah. So the yin yang symbol, you know, the way it's presented, so you've got the black fish and the white fish, and they've each got an eye of the other color. But it's always changing. It's changing all the time. The black fish is becoming white, and the white fish is becoming black. But because of that eye, yeah, the eye is changing it, yeah, and they're always switching, yeah. So the yin yang symbol is like it's almost like sort of just a snapshot of a process. Okay, now let's just try the other side. So just contracting and then expanding, contracting. Yeah, so we're just looking at, you know, where's the center of the activity? Where does it all start? Where's its source? Yeah, and it's the Dan Chen, but the Dan Chen is in two halves. One half one side, one half the other side. So I pull, and then the whole thing becomes full, and then there's a seed of emptiness, a seed of attack inside my Dan Chen, which is forcing it to expand. My hand eventually gets there. So I pull. Yeah, and all the time just trying to feel that pull of gravity that's rooting you, anchoring you to the ground. And then Okay, so let's just bring it back. So again, just making sure this wants to be down in the ground, yeah? Okay, and now let's just try a bit of the breathing. Yeah, so what we want to just really work the breath and feel the breath. So for that, just make that little hole with your mouth. Yeah, so it's like you, and then just suck the air in and blow the air out. So the hole is so small that it's difficult to get the air passing. So you really have to push, you really have to squeeze and then suck. And you want to feel the different muscles that were involved in the in-breath and the out-breath. Yeah. So as I breathe in, my belly gets tense, you can feel it. Yeah, if you make this really small, then to actually pull the in-breath in, this whole area gets strong. But what it is, it's like it comes from the inside, it comes from the diaphragm pulling down. Yeah, so my diaphragm pulls down. And this just has to support that, yeah? But you can, if you look at it, you can feel that it's inside, there's a drag down. And then here, to get the air to go out, you relax the diaphragm, and now these muscles have to squeeze to push the diaphragm back up. So different muscles, it feels like the same, but they're actually quite different, yeah? This is external, this is like your belly muscles squeezing, and this is inside. Yeah, so once you've seen the muscles, once you've located the muscles and understood what's happening, then you can make the sort of hole bigger. And just get your mind switching. So diaphragm, belly. And then how do you switch? How do you switch from one to the other? it sort of rolls. It rolls into the other set, like you've got the two sets of muscles, yeah, belly and diaphragm. And as this one finishes, it sort of just naturally rolls into this one, yeah. So just feeling that return, that's the most important part. Ooh, just letting it just relax across so that there's no real break when you change from in-breath to out-breath, from out-breath to in-breath. So and again, it's exactly the same process as we've just been looking at with the yielding. Yeah, there's already a seed of pull in the of the belly here. You know, so as one is finishing, the other one is already starting. There's this overlap. We just want to feel that. It's what John would call bleed. So for him, bleeding, rawness, you know, having the skin so raw that it's weeping all the time. Just always remembering that it's always two halves. It's always a left and a right. Yeah. So there's always a slight sort of wobble because they never quite start together, or they shouldn't. If they do, it just shows that, you know, you're just using this hard mind. Yeah. So when it's really just soft and natural, there'll be this sort of play between the two sides. Ooh. And now let's just bring it back here. Again, just, it almost feels like your lower back is sort of just, it's just concertinaed almost into like a much shorter stack. Same with the neck feels sort of crunched down. And that's gravity basically compressing you. And then the energy that's coming up from the ground is extending and twisting and loosening all that, but they're working together all the time. Okay, and now let's just work on the torso more, yeah, the upper body. So let's just try making a circle. So just feeling that roundness, like a spear. You've got a spear between your hands and you're just rotating it. And just feeling it, you know, how does it change the way you feel, you know, when the hand starts at the bottom and as it slowly comes up, how does it feel in here? Because we're looking at the heart now. So we've worked on the dantian. And now the next place to go is the heart. So we're just Okay, so let's just get this going. I'll have to speak a little bit louder. Not that anyone listens. So we're just locating, the heart center really. It's just the middle of this circle. So as we rotate the hands, it just draws the mind, the soft mind, to that point. It's a very different mind, part of your mind, than the mind that's in the down chain. But it has to be really compassionate and sort of understanding. Yeah. Okay. Now just back into mindfulness. So just look in here. It's like the hollow of the chest, the hollow chest. Yeah. If you let it, it will just naturally draw your attention to it. And so we have to work quite hard to distract ourselves from these truths, the down chain and the heart. So this is why this is so sort of rabid. It's just minute. So they say, when you look here, you find a child. Yeah, and they talk about the inner child. And it's in, Moses, when he spoke to God, God appeared to him as a boy, as a little boy. So this is like a nest. It's like a nest. And your arms just holding that, embracing that. And it's like, in the contemplative prayer, the Christian thing that the Carthusian monks do, they look into their own heart. That's where they find God. They don't find God up there. It's just this, and it's this total retreat, which is symbolized by them putting up the hoods, the cowls of their habits. You can no longer see their faces, it's just a black hole. So they've gone into this black hole. which is the heart. And it looks black, it seems to be black. It's what they call a blinding light. It's like a paradox. Yeah? It's so bright, it's blinded you when you look at it. And so you just see blackness. Yeah? Like a pit. And to actually sense the light, you really have to turn away from it, whilst realizing and acknowledging that it's actually still there. Yeah. Okay, now let's just try just a bit of turning, just to bring turning in as a useful component. So back to the Danqian, but feeling this heart directly above it, directly above the Danqian. Yes, and so the belly feels like it's being pulled down by gravity, whereas the heart just feels like it's floating in space, like it's suspended. Yeah, so your attention to the Danqian produces these two up and down forces, and then the heart is just suspended within that, like a force field or an energy field. Just feel the min-meng. As your hand comes into that area, you can feel the energy getting thicker. So the energy coming out of your min-meng is really thick and soupy. And then the energy in front is really light and bright. And so it all depends on two things: quiet mind and sinking relaxed. And so one leg's becoming full, and the other leg is becoming empty. So just try and feel the seed of the other in each one. Yeah? So as you sink into the leg, there's something there that's wanting to expand, and it's that bounces you back. And then on the empty leg, you know, because my foot stays on the floor, there's like a solid fullness there in that contact, and that pulls me back. Yeah. And feel the heart, and feel the figure of 8 in that. So that, again, like the Dane Chen is 2 halves, the heart is 2 halves as well. And they're switching as you turn because they're switching, because the heart is breathing. Yeah? And so one side is becoming more yin, and then it turns into yang. Okay. And now let's just come back into this. And again, just feel this. Yeah. So it's like the figure of 8 in your chest. Yeah. Is a sort of expanding. It's expanding the chest. Yeah. There's a sense of fullness. So very much 2 halves, like 2 tips. Yeah. This is like 2 balls, and this is like 2 tips. Yeah. Just the imagination is good. And now we'll turn with it here. So, so now visualizing that figure of 8 around the hips, and yeah, so you're just making you're just doing that circle exercise, trying to anyway. It will want to come into waving hands in the class because that's what we're used to. But just try and keep it just that circle, but turn with it. So again, just feeling this side of this thing, and then really feeling this side, and just feeling the center of the circle being over in my left side here, and then the center of the circle moving across to the right side. So it's difficult because it really needs that base of the Dan Chen. So the base of that sort of compressing lower back. So it really gets into the legs. And now let's just try. So when we were doing the down churn, two halves, and just pulling one side, like breathing with one side of the down churn. So we want the same thing here, but it's not like here it was very muscular, you know, you could really feel it. It's just like very masculine, you're just sort of working muscularly. Now this is emotional. And so the part that's the equivalent of the drawing in here to actually pull the hand in, that's like a break. It's like almost like you're going to burst into tears. Yeah? So the hand reaches forwards on the attack, and then something melts and breaks, and that sort of folds into itself and produces, from the linear, produces this sort of circularity. Yeah? So what's important is to get that emotional register, that feeling. Yeah? So it's like, you know, it's like, and it's difficult, but it's only difficult because we're not used to it. Yeah. So inside this emptiness, there's this seed that's calling, and then I just slowly become it. Yeah. And then here. Yeah, this is what people, especially people here, they're so used to being tough and ugly, that they just, it's very difficult for them to get this. Any sense of being weak and hate. So here it's just you literally allow part of yourself inside to break. If it was any bigger, you'd be a blubbering wreck on the floor. You can, you know, this part of the sort underneath the collarbone should get completely hollow and empty. So that's where the emptiness appears. It's that side of the heart. So, you know, generally there's like a ridge of muscle in that space that gets hard. And we just got one to just, so, you know, this is like an external explanation. So, yeah, so it's not enough just to reach towards the person and pull them in. You've got to make a hold for them. Yeah, and that hold is inside you. It's not beside you. It's here. It's this side of my heart. And it just naturally makes the arm curve up. So the arm becomes this sort of ward-off shape, and having been straight, either because it's attacking or because it's reaching out. This breakage here naturally curves it up. So as you start turning and emptying here, that the arm gets left behind, and that really stretches the outside and empties the inside. And so, if you were actually yielding to someone, you'd have started this whole period well before your hand reached the person. Just imagine falling into a trampoline. As you fell into it, there'd come a point just before you started coming up where you would feel like you're completely enveloped by this rubber skin. So that's the feeling here. So that child inside is here, and it's being smothered almost by this yielding, and it just naturally sinks into this full side. So it just becomes that full seed in the center of that empty seed in the center of the fullness you are. Okay. And now let's just finish with a bit of figures of eights around the hips. And just getting the hands to go with it. So they start off just following the figure of eight. And then they sort of drift apart. So just making sure the sacrum doesn't go back. Just keep the sacrum forwards. So this figure eight is all the way up the spine. And then just snaking into the water. Yeah, so this is very similar. So that point where you break and allow the arm to come out from the shoulder, it's very similar to that feeling of the break here to get the yield. So we're just stretching something that would normally be over in sort of milliseconds into something that's really long, and just feeling the emotional, what John would call the emotional profile. How do your feelings shift as you travel along this path? How does it affect you? Okay. Okay, so just feel it. So down chin. It's like it's hanging on an elastic thread, just sort of down. You've got the legs thrusting up through your body. And then this big black hole, which is actually totally full, but you can't see it. It's not our place. So that has a sense of receding. It's just like you're falling backwards. When you look at this, then you naturally just want to fall backwards. So you need the arms reaching forwards to contain and balance it. And then you've got turning, so there's slipping side to side. And so the turning from the waist is connected to your breathing and your muscularity. And then the turning from the heart is related to your sort of emotion. In the way you're prepared to allow your feelings to change, and just how flexible in a way. How tolerant and flexible can you be? Can you open up and contain the other regardless of how hideous they are? And then you can feel that this exercise, which is just so important, it sort of just wakens up. It's like the foliage on the tree. Yeah? It's got all these sort of leaves and flowers and birds. So let's just bring it back. Just let the legs have that feeling that they're about to break. So to get into energy, it's all you have to do is let the legs break. But really, the more you can relax them, the more you'll feel the energy from the ground and the energy of your body. So we tend to lock all that out by just freezing, tensing the legs. Okay, great. So let's finish.